Hello. I stand before you as a person who has died. 12 years ago, I was 19 years old. I had just started my sophomore year at Virginia Tech. The terrorists had attacked that September. Now it was the end of the month. I was home from Tech. My grandfather had died the April before. All day I had helped my grandma move. That night I was with friends. We decided to go to the nearby Silver Diner. Two of the friends had just started dating. So the guy took the long way around so they could be alone. I drove to nearby Great Falls, Virginia. On a country road there was a French restaurant. The lights in the garden are beautiful. I have no memory of that drive. Details came from witnesses, police, and friends. Oddly, I have no memory of September 2001. Everyone recalls the terrorist attacks on 9/11. I have zero recall. You see, it takes time to permanently imprint memories. Like many deaths, mine was from a car crash. A witness tried hard to keep me alive. Very clever firefighters used the job's life to get me out of the car. Wonderful EMTs brought me back from death. I was vegetative comatose for 6 weeks and 1 day. Hollywood has it all wrong. In movies, when a victim wakes up from a coma, he tells police what happened. Nothing could be further from reality. After emerging from unconsciousness, I remained on life support and could not talk. It took 2 months just to relearn to breathe. When finally able to answer questions, it was as if my mind had moved away. I went into inpatient rehab with the hope of recovery. I was asked to sketch a clock. The circle was a lettuce leaf. Numbers were written into a jumbled tile. All day and every night in rehab, I scratched myself bleeding. I was trapped in stage 4 of a coma. My parents were told that stage 4 of a coma is the agitated stage. Doctors felt that I would remain in the agitated stage forever. Because I did not improve, I flunked out of rehab. I was moved to a nursing home. With another few months of non-improvement, I flunked out of rehab again. There's no place to send me. I was sent home. At home, my parents did all that a dozen medical people had done to care for me. My dad got a job at night to help during the days. His pay was dropped by 2/3. Caregiving takes a lot. To feed me, Dad held me down. Mom filled the feeding tube. To change my diapers, Dad held my arms. Mom cleaned me. It felt good to be clean. Thanks, Mom. I threatened to hit her in the face with a shovel. I got rehab at home. Therapists came to my house. Still, I did not improve. In fact, my arms and legs curled into permanent shortening of muscles, ligaments, and tendons. Clearly, I was not going to get any better. Doctors and insurance felt recovery had hit the end. About the crash, there were 4 witnesses. They were in a van. An SUV came up behind them. Both vehicles were climbing a really steep and blind hill. The SUV gunned its motor to pass the van. Police said I was on the other side of the hill, driving the speed limit, minding my own business. At the top of the hill, the SUV, still in the wrong lane, crashed into my compact car. This was smack head-on. Then the SUV drove over my car. As the detective explained, SUVs have high bumpers for off-road routes and boulders. Then an SUV drove over a compact car is simply natural. Forget all the safety features of the car. When an SUV is on top of your car, nothing can protect you. The SUV plunged through my windshield. It ripped the metal frame and tore my airbag. Then the SUV entered my driving compartment, pushed the dashboard onto my legs. My thigh bones were crushed. My feet were broken. My insides were gashed. Fortunately for me, SUVs can flip. But as the SUV flipped, it crunched the side of my car. Metal and glass went into my arm. My arm was shattered into tiny pieces. My skull likewise was permanently dented. The SUV had turned my car into a child's spinning top. With increased speed, the car spun and spun back down the hill. The crash was very eventful for my brain. With the head-on hit, my body, just like those TV crash dummies, propelled forward. With this forward motion, my brain slammed against my forehead. Picture, if you will, a melon smashed against a brick wall. The inside top of your skull has ridges. During that slamming, the ridges also tore up my brain. Crash car dummies always propel back again. My brain, too, propelled back, slammed against the back of my skull. For a second time, the melon was smashed on brick. When the SUV crunched the side of my car, the motion sent my seat-belted body to the right. It was another incident of the melon smashed on brick. Then my body was propelled leftward. The melon was smashed on brick a fourth time. Remember, too, those ridges on the inside of your skull. The ridges also had torn at my brain 4 times. As my car spun down the hill, my brain was shaking like a rabbit in a lion's mouth. My brain also spun around on its brainstem. The left and right hemispheres sheared apart in opposite directions, the way an oil cookie would when twisted apart. All this slamming, tearing, and shearing gave me a severe traumatic brain injury with diffuse axonal damage. They say the survivor of a brain injury must learn to compensate. Kind of like when you're blind and your other senses must take over. What happens if you're made blind and your other senses also get injured? Will you be robbed of the ability to compensate? That makes me wonder about brain injury. With a stroke or a gunshot, the brain injury is often bad, but possibly confined. If, let's say, the brain is injured all over, can the odd bits that remain uninjured inspire compensation? Let's put it this way. If the ball players sitting on the bench are injured along with the players in the field, who's going to play? My brain was likewise in the state of who's going to play. Because my brain was scrambled to send weird messages to my body. Rather than letting me try to recover, the weird messages made my heart beat as fast as a sprinter's heart. For months, I was verging on a coronary. The weird messages had my body grow bone within muscles and joints. This bone growth is like jagged metal. It is painful, but forget about removal. Often the bone growth surrounds nerves. The injured brain also told my body to grow female breasts. The weird messages gave me a fever of 106. I perspired as if I had malaria. My mother and girlfriend had a month-long assembly line of one cloth in ice bath, another cloth on my burning forehead, and this is while I was being kept on an ice blanket. When a brain is injured, it has bruising just like a sprained ankle. It swells up. The swollen ankle gets an ace bandage to curb the swelling. The injured brain swells inside my skull. The skull created a fixed chamber. It was as if a huge water-laden sponge had been shoved into a baby food jar. I wasn't stable enough for surgery to remove portions of my skull. Therefore, my brain acquired secondary injury. That happened each time the brain's frequent storming episodes occurred. Your frontal lobes are very special. They allow you to turn off a faucet and have the good sense to turn. They allow you to turn on a faucet and have the good sense to turn off the faucet before there's a flood. Frontal lobes have you leave the house when it is on fire. These lobes keep you from laughing at a funeral, so that you hug a kitten instead of squeezing it. Frontal lobes motivate you to recover. My frontal lobes are gone. If you were to look at MRIs of my brain, you'd see a big void at my forehead. The void is rather cool, but it means I'm neither who I was nor have the abilities I had. The sad part is that I remember how easy life was. I remember the proficiency that comes with adulthood, the experiences, the joys, the independence. I acquired the worst brain injury the doctors have seen. From Fairfax Hospital to Kennedy Krieger to Johns Hopkins, all the doctors have called mine the worst brain injury. I won't detail other medical issues, how immobility makes contractures, and what these contractures do to permanently twist the body. What happens with embolism, infections, liver failure, blown peripheral vision, and 26 surgeries. Instead, I introduced you to the person I was. In high school, because I liked doing lots of things, I stayed very busy. I was the youngest intern ever at the Pentagon. I helped design my web pages. Since 8th grade, I had volunteered at the U.S. Geological Survey and was hired full-time during vacations to design the USGS's web pages and digitize their maps. I was a swim coach, a lifeguard, captain of my high school swim team, and ran track and did hurdles. I also rode with the competitive crew team and was a merit scholar. I was president of my high school's German club.
You were hot.
After the Columbine shooting, I served on the Senate Youth Violence Symposium with 5 senators. Our unfulfilled goal was to end school violence. I attended Presidential Classroom and the Future World Leaders Summit, both at Georgetown University. I was asked to apply to the Virginia Governor's School, but became a German exchange student. I was an authorized moderator for a debate with Fairfax County politicians running for county office. I was given the honor to introduce our high school graduation speaker, the mother of NBA player Grant Hill. As an aside, I was lucky enough to have had Grant Hill as my basketball coach when I was a boy, and he was playing for Duke. I was fluent in German, even though my parents can't speak the language. There are other activities and many awards, including a Virginia Art Award, of which I am very proud. But I was most proud to be a triple major at Virginia Tech. And I was thrilled to be dating a beautiful and intelligent girl, whom I dated since high school, who was a sophomore at William & Mary. Coincidentally, that morning of the crash, I had told my parents that I had been invited to attend classes the next summer with a select group at the London School of Economics and at The Hague, and that I had been encouraged by my Virginia Tech advisor to spend a semester studying in Vienna. But in less than a minute, those exciting opportunities in my dreams came to a halt with traumatic brain injury. People call the consequence of brain injury brain damage. The TV's Antiques Roadshow teaches that when something is damaged, its value is severely diminished. I will not believe that my value is diminished. If anything, brain injury has made me amazing. My brain lost all its abilities. I was as helpless as a newborn. A newborn can't brush its teeth. Only after years, and I mean years of labor, I managed to brush instead of staring at the toothpaste tube. With this tiniest improvement, I turned into Albert Einstein. Einstein was brilliant, but his brain was not only that of a genius, it was without injury. It took me years and many surgeries before I could stand again. When I took those first steps, I was every bit the gold medalist Olympian. Yes, I flunked out of rehab programs. In all, I flunked out of 7. How have I recovered this far? I owe everything to a fortune cookie. Yes, a fortune cookie. Have I your attention now? You see, one night, for dinner, we had takeout Chinese. I was in the hospital bed, wrapped in adult diapers, staring as usual. 6 years had passed since the crash. My parents gave me a fortune cookie. Thanks to my brain injury, however, I couldn't break open the cookie. My mother, nervous since the crash, was right there to help. She handed me the paper fortune. I had recently relearned to read a sentence or two. You are going to have a pleasant experience, read the fortune. What could be the pleasant experience? A visit from a friend? No. My friends were busy with jobs. My girlfriend might take me somewhere? No. By now she was logically living far away. A back massage? No, that's a pleasant experience for many. This brain injury has made me very weird. If I were touched, I'd squeak like a tropical bird. A trip somewhere? No, that was out. My bedwetting and diapers precluded trips, and my tropical bird screeches made things awkward. We just learned about a camp for brain injury survivors. The camp was organized by the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. The brain injury camp is a pleasant experience with fortune cookie? What kind of camper stares all day? I've already said that the crash had made my mom nervous. Even so, she called the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. Mom explained that I could not dress myself. I wore diapers. I could not even remember to drink water when I got thirsty. Your son sounds like a perfect candidate for Camp Bruce McCoy.
There was no motive behind that. I'm sure he meant nothing by that.
My mother guessed they didn't understand just how bad I was. But Mag needs some external help for everything, explained my nervous mom. Sounds like many of our campers, said the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. That first year at Camp Bruce McCoy, I was treated like a rock star. I was on top of the world for the entire week. The campers were people just like me. The counselors treated me as a person without a brain injury. Then I came home. I was pretty bad. My strides disappeared. My nervous mother felt camp might have been a mistake. Soon, however, my brain seemed to blossom. Out of the blue, I stopped wetting my wheelchair seat cushion. I figured I had to transfer to a toilet. I had to give myself enough time to get to the men's room before it became desperation. I gave up laughing at the bad news of the war in Iraq. In other words, I learned to laugh more appropriately, even without frontal lobes. That's for everyone. My tropical bird screeches stopped forever. The following year, I attended camp again. As before, I was exhausted when I came home. The bedwetting resumed, back on with the adult diapers. In a few days, however, my brain blossomed again. Suddenly, off went the diapers. The task of reading also became easier. For the first time since the crash, I read an entire book. This was no elementary school format. I picked out a really thick and scholarly volume. In truth, I could not remember many of the book's facts. I could, however, understand the writing and could keep abreast of what I read. Another year passed. Sadly, though, my forward strides had stopped. Spring came and so did camp. Back home afterward, the bedwetting returned once or twice. But predictably, my brain blossomed. I was now able to give speeches at the four-state smooth operator program. Also, I began to walk longer distances. I joined my mother at the Relay for Life. I walked an entire lap with just the cane. Suddenly, stair climbing was achievable. I got moved from the hospital bed in the dining room to my old, wonderful bedroom. I was also able to join a cognitive therapy group for brain injury survivors. Sadly, however, I was rejected by a place to join the day program. That place, unlike the Brain Injury Association of Virginia, didn't have the foresight to see what I could offer. I attended Camp Bruce McCoy the next year. I knew I would backslide afterward, but, as always, my brain blossomed more. And I was able to join a Paralympic swimming group. Easily, they taught me to swim with only one arm. I could swim unaided, too. Recovery games also allowed me to volunteer at the YMCA. Soon I was encoding new membership information on my computer system. We have seen that each year Camp Bruce McCoy makes my brain backslide from exhaustion. But always, my brain will bound forward like a cheetah. Last year, I went from having lost the ability to add and subtract to comprehension of high school algebra and geometry. This year, my post-camp backslide was only a few hours, not days. For the first time since the crash, I can remember more of what I read. Thanks to that, I can drop facts as if I were a walking Wikipedia. Suddenly, too, I decided to draft a letter to the Washington Post. My hero, Grant Hill, had just announced his return. The letter, I report, modestly, showed no hint of brain injury. Where would I be without the Brain Injury Association of Virginia's Camp Bruce McCoy? Camp teaches independence. It challenges and brightens the injured brain. Camp inspires the ability to feel whole and uninjured. Male counselors make you one of them. Females remind you how to flirt. You become a superstar, an athlete, a brilliant comedian. Camp Bruce McCoy, all at once you're handsome, talented, and unstoppable. The sense of pride is profuse. Now I offer a glimpse into a Mac without, that is, BIAV and Camp Bruce McCoy. Imagine instead my life without Brain Injury Association of Virginia and Camp Bruce McCoy. Forget about what I look like tonight. Forget my joy talking to you. Forget my belief in myself. Instead, please see, in your mind, a Mac Fedge remains confined to a hospital bed. His injured brain can only worsen. Inactivity has made his legs as thin as his upper arms. He has become a twisted and shrunken version of himself. His eyes are a tunnel into hollowness, I imagine. If he bothers to communicate, it likely will be grunting or those screeches of the tropical bird, half-hearted now. The Mac knows nothing of intellectual enrichment. Plainly, he has given up on recovery. Surely Mac's parents will be giving up too. I shudder to think. This scenario is too dreadful. I need to inject a funny story now. First year following Camp Bruce McCoy, I went to a new neurologist. He assessed me with a short him and me dialogue. Then he went on to look at my MRI films. Rather quickly, he returned. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I was baffled. Can see you. Who had the brain injury, the neurologist or me? I said, "Don't you remember? You were going to examine me." Yes, I know all that, the neurologist said. He laughed, then he continued speaking. "What I meant to ask was this. What are you doing here, conversing, able to sit, not slumped in a wheelchair?" "If I were to go by your MRI," the neurologist explained, "I believe you could do absolutely nothing short of lying in bed, silently staring at the ceiling." I might have told the neurologist about BIAV's Camp Bruce McCoy, but would he believe such a transformation could occur with just 1 week at camp? Are you able to believe? Attending Camp Bruce McCoy just 6 times has made me recover to this degree. All these strides makes me smile about the Chinese fortune cookie. The cookie's fortune should have read, BIAV's Camp Bruce McCoy is going to lead you to many pleasant experiences, much relearning of those tasks previously lost from brain injury. And miracles will happen too, each and every day of your life. Good fortune is not winning the billion-dollar lottery. Instead, good fortune is dying and coming back to life in order to show that recovery from even the worst brain injury is far from impossible. Oh, and by the way, the moral of this story is this. The brain needs enrichment in order to sustain itself, and in order to recover. God bless you, Camp Bruce McCoy. God bless its workers and its counselors. Long live the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. Long live those who support it. Thank you for your generous hearts, and thank you for listening to me.
Still hot.
Did you get